Welcome to the last module of Marketing Mastery. Now, you may be watching this before you've gone through all the other modules, which is actually a pretty good idea because this module really ties in everything that Marketing Mastery is all about. This module won't really give you the nuts and bolts to go out and get results, but it will give you, the systems and the tools to help keep it all together and make it sustainable. And look, that's a really important point. When it comes to marketing, one of the reasons why people struggle with marketing, struggle to get results, is because they're not consistent. They have some great ideas and they go out and they take some action, but they don't follow it up with some consistency and being out there making a sort of a smooth effort in marketing. It's more of a jagged up and down. So our goal here is, now that you've got the tools and the resources and the knowledge to go out and market, we want to give you a way to make sure you can do it on a sustainable level. So the output of what we're going to be talking about is really consolidating everything into a marketing calendar, and that's one of the major parts of this module. The other major part is the return on investment side. It's one thing to be out there doing lots of marketing, but if the marketing is not working or you're not getting a return for it, there's not much point in that. Now, we did talk about return on investment briefly at the very beginning. We're going to come back and revisit it now because it is very important that you've got the systems in place to continually measure that and fine-tune your marketing as you go. You can't just run a campaign once and it work for you and then just keep running it and never measure it again, assuming everything's going to be okay. We've always got to be on top of these things and make sure that we're consistently getting a return on investment. So if you've got your workbook in front of you, if you haven't, download it now and print it out. Certainly have your workbook there to read along as we go. And there's a couple of key tools or handouts you're going to need as well as the workbook. The first one is going to be the vehicle checklist from back in module 1, where you ticked off the things that you are working on in your business or the things you want to work on from a marketing perspective. You're also going to want to have a copy of the marketing calendar template and the sample one that we gave you, and also a copy of your vehicle action plan. They're the ones you'll need for the first part around the marketing calendar, and the second part on the return on investment, you'll need to make sure you've got the ROI tool printed out for you or open on your computer screen so you can play around with it as we're going along. Now, just like all the other modules, we highly advocate that you watch this multiple times to really get the learning to sink in. You can download the audio version, put it on your phone, listen to it while you're in the car, and certainly be watching the video as you are now, but watch it a couple more times as well, just to it all sink in. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the marketing calendar. Okay, we're ready to do the marketing calendar. Now I'm going to wind ahead here, skip forward, and show you what the end product's going to look like, which you've probably already seen if you've downloaded the template, but I've got one here for us. This is our marketing calendar. So if you've got this one here, pull that out and have a look at that. Now, you can see here, I've only printed out one quarter, but on the template you've got, there's 4 different quarters, so it represents 12 months worth of marketing initiatives. You can see it's pretty straightforward. We're looking just to simply put the different strategies that you're going to be using down on the left-hand column there, and we're going to be allocating a level of activity, who's responsible for it, and the dollars that you're going to be investing in each of the columns to represent the time frame by which you're going to execute. Now, to get to that point, to get it finished, that finished product, there's just a couple of steps that we're going to walk through. Now, this is not terribly complex, and that's the intention. Try and keep it as simple as possible, but there's just a process to go through to make sure we're doing things in the right order and executing on the things that are going to give us the best chance of results, rather than maybe going for some of the more flashy or exciting things that we'd like to be doing. Want to make sure we're starting with the fundamentals first. So, the first thing we're going to do is come back to the vehicle checklist, which was the one in module 1. If you've got that handy there, this is where we've identified each of the online, offline, and internal strategies that you can be using. And you've gone through each one and identified things that you're currently using, whether you're getting good results, bad results, or you're not sure. And then you go through and looked at tick off ones that you've used in the past. Again, good results, bad results, and not sure. And then the column for should be using and could be using. So the should be using is, wow, this one is a no-brainer. We've absolutely got to put this in place. It's got to be on our short list. When we're looking for new things to put in place, this is going to be our go-to list. And then the could be using. The could be using is more along the lines of, gee, that one sounds interesting. I think that could work as well. But it's not it absolutely has to be in place immediately. And then, the last column is the not applicable. So you can fill that in or not. It's not that crucial. But the starting point here is to look at the things that you're currently doing. Right? We want to look at the current things you're currently doing, particularly, or actually only, the ones that are working, and we're going to transfer those to the calendar. That's step one. So go through and look at the ones you're already doing and transfer them to the calendar. Now the calendar is straightforward. As I mentioned, you've got the three columns. The who is responsible, and that's a really critical point. The who is not necessarily the person that's going to be doing all the work. It's the person that is responsible and accountable for that strategy being executed. So you might have Mary, or what have I got here on the example? We've got Bill is going to be responsible for the hard copy newsletter to existing clients and prospects. So that might involve a bit of graphic design. It might involve some printing, some stuffing of envelopes and some mailing. Bill may be going to do none of that, but he is responsible to make sure that whoever he is going to get to do it, to make sure it gets done on time. So you go forward and put the who's accountable in there. The dollars, pretty straightforward. What's the level of investment or the cost that you're going to incur for that month for that strategy? And the last one, the little number sign in the top of the column there, that refers to the level of activity. So in that example, the hard copy newsletter, we had a number of 5,000, meaning 5,000 actual copies are going to go out there into the marketplace. Now, you're not always going to be able to put a number in that section there. If you're running Google AdWords, you're not going to have a number of impressions that you're going to put down there because it's going to vary and it'd be too hard and not much point in doing that. You might look at that when it comes to the measuring side of the return on investment, but in terms of just planning the activity, if it was Google AdWords, it would just be who's responsible for it and how much you're going to invest. Some of the others like networking events or strategic alliance meetings or seminars or newspaper ads. Well, newspaper ads is probably not a good one, but so there are some others there that you can definitely apply a hard activity number to. So they're the three things: who, how much, and what's the level of activity. Go ahead and map those on your calendar, the things you're already doing, and then we can sit back and say, okay, so if we look at that, have we got enough activity on there relative to the goals that we want to hit in our business? Is there enough on there, or do we need to add more? Now, if you were to sit back and say, you know what, there's not enough on there, we absolutely have to have more, but even looking at what you've got on there is overwhelming in terms of the amount of time that it's going to take you to do it, then you might need to go back and revisit your goals. It's very important that the amount of activity to reach your goals is achievable. Like if you've got to execute on 6 new strategies inside the next 90 days to be able to what you believe to get towards your goals, that's probably not a realistic target. If you're going to implement 1 or 2 new things in 90 days, that might be more realistic. Depends on how much resources you have available to you. So anyway, sit back and you say, okay, I think we need to add more strategies. So now we've got to come back and pick from our short list of which ones we want to do. Obviously, the place to start there is to look at back on the vehicle checklist here, vehicle checklist from module 1, we're going to look at our should be using categories or used in the past that had worked. Right, that's another good one to go to. And used in the past can often be better because you've already done it. You've maybe got the copy or the tools or the templates you use, or at least you've got a level of knowledge around what you have to do. So that would be the first go-to point. The next one would be the should be using, and to go through this, we've got to prioritize. Now you're going to prioritize based on 4 things, and they're on your vehicle checklist there, over the side here. Prioritizing section. So the 4 things are your skill level, 1 to 3, being a low number means you've already got the skills and the knowledge to do that. 3 would mean you've got to learn a lot of stuff. The time required, a 1 means not much time at all, 3 means lots of time. Potential results, this could be a bit of a guess if you've never done it before. How are you going to know what the results might be? But there would be sort of a gut feel around that. And if you're not sure, if you've really got no idea, give it a high score to dissuade you away from that. And the budget, again, a 3 is expensive, a 1 is inexpensive. The goal being, as you go through and you add up the score for each, the ones with the lower score are going to be easier to do, faster, cost less, and get you better results. So, sorry, the potential results, I gave you the wrong spin there. A 3 would be low results, a 1 would be high results. That one's a little bit counterintuitive, got me. So you go through and score each one and then add up, and that's a simple way to help you prioritize. Obviously, the outcome of each of those scores is not cast in stone. If you look at it and the one that comes out the best, it doesn't really feel right, it's a guide. So you can change it, depend on what you think is best. But prioritizing each of those categories sort of gets you to think about it in terms of what's going to be the best for you. So once you've picked, as I said, 1, 2, or maybe 3 strategies to add to your calendar, and certainly you can add more if it's going to be over a longer time frame. If you're planning for 12 months, go ahead and put 6 new strategies on there, knowing you're going to have 12 months to roll them out. But you certainly wouldn't want to do any more than 2 new ones per quarter. So we go ahead and we add those to your calendar. Quarter 1 here, but then you got quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. So you can start to see from a big picture 6 or 12 months out what your level of activity is going to be for marketing, who's going to be responsible, and from the prioritization section, you'll have a feel for the time investment and also obviously the monetary investment. So once you've mapped this out, you'll be able to see exactly how much you plan to spend in the next 6 to 12 months. Now, if this is the first time you've done it, you might not have all the costs right handy in front of you. So this is going to be a learning exercise. But this tool, the marketing calendar, is something you're going to use for the rest of your business life. You'll always have a marketing calendar you can come back and refer to so you know where you're at. And your skills and your knowledge are going to grow and you're going to get better and better at doing it. And that brings me to the next part, is about the review process. It's no good to do this, put it over on the shelf or even up on the wall and never look at it again or never fine tune it. So we're going to make sure that we, at the very minimum, we're reviewing this every 90 days. So what that would look like is, say right now, you put your plan in place and you did just 6 months out. You plan the next 2 quarters, 6 months. At the end of the first quarter, you would come back and review your plan and you would say, okay, how did we go in the last quarter? Did it work? Did it not work? And we're going to talk about that more on the return on investment. You would then say, okay, what have we got planned for the next quarter? Does that still make sense? Do we know what we have to do there? Okay, cool. And then you would go ahead and plan the next quarter after that. The reason being is marketing takes time. If you were to, at the end of one quarter, start planning what you're going to do for the next quarter, you might be starting a brand new strategy that takes time and there's some background work to do. And by the time you get all that done, you're halfway through the quarter and then you start to execute. And even once you've executed, it takes time for results to come in. So by the time you've done all that, it's the end of the quarter and you're just starting to see momentum kick in from your marketing result. If you're trying to get some shorter term results, that strategy is not going to work for you. Whereas if you know in 6 months' time you're going to be starting a brand new strategy, let's say Google AdWords, you've never done that before, okay, this quarter I'm going to have to invest some time in the learning. I'm going to go back and review the Google AdWords module. I'm going to have to start to maybe test around with some wording and write some test ads, so that when the time comes, you're ready to execute. You're ready to pull the trigger and start to get some results and some measuring going on. So you always want to have a rolling calendar of at least 6 months, ideally 9 or 12 months in advance, so you can sort of have things mapped out and you're not flying by the seat of your pants. That's the minimum to do. Now what I'd like to do is give you a little bonus. Stay tuned for the bigger picture on planning that will help you planning your business, not just on the marketing side, but your business as a whole. Okay, bonus section. So we're going to talk about planning your business. We've talked about from the marketing, making sure you're reviewing at least every 90 days. And as I mentioned, that's the minimum. You want to be doing actually quite a bit more than that. So you're going to have a 6 to 12 month rolling marketing calendar. and that you're going to be reviewing that every 90 days as we just discussed. Well, there's a few extra layers or a few extra steps in the planning process that we would highly advocate for you. With our one-on-one clients, let me give you a sense of what they go through as far as planning. Certainly they have a 90-day plan, and that gets created at the end of every quarter. But what they also have is a semi-monthly meeting set up, meaning on the second week of every month, they have collated all their results from the previous month. And that would include financials, it would include any staff or employee metrics, it would include sales and marketing numbers. They have all their metrics pulled together, because you can't have them right at the end of the month. It takes a little time to bring it together, but it would normally they'd aim to have that ready for the second week of the month. So therefore there would be a 1 to 3 hour meeting that's sort of reviewing the numbers, what were the results. And then the other semi-monthly meeting happens on the last week of the month, and that's where they're reviewing what they need to do for the next month ahead, making sure they're being proactive, they know the important things to do, and they're crystal clear on how they're going to move forward. Obviously that all comes from the 90-day plan that's already been established, but it's a review process. You see, in creating success, momentum, which you would have heard me talk about quite a bit, is so important. Too many times we get these ideas, or we get a brainwave that says, okay, here's what we go and do, and we go and do it, but then it loses momentum. It doesn't stay fresh. It starts to get old. There's in Vern Harnish's book, The Rockefeller Habits, he talks about 3 keys to maintaining momentum and getting results. He talks about a theme for every quarter, give it a theme so it centralizes the focus. He talks about measurement, and Peter Drucker, who's considered to be one of the gurus on modern management and was the father of quality systems, he says what gets measured gets managed. Basically, if you're not measuring things, then how do you know whether you need to change them or not? So there's the measuring, and then there's the frequency of review or meetings, the way to keep communication fresh. So what we're talking about, I'm not going to go into themes, but I am talking about the measuring, which we talk about in the return on investment. We've talked about measuring a lot so far. And for our one-on-one clients, obviously there's measuring around financials and other parts of the business. On the marketing, so the measuring, and then we've got the meeting schedule. And the meeting schedule, I talked already about the semi-monthly meetings, but then we've also got the other weekly meetings that happen when you're not having a semi-monthly meeting. So in a month, let's say it's 4 weeks in a month, the first week would be a regular weekly meeting. That would be 30 minutes to an hour. You're just reviewing the important things to get done that week to stay on track for your plan. The second week of the month would be a semi-monthly meeting, meaning that you're reviewing the numbers from the previous month. The third week of the month would just be a regular weekly meeting, reviewing the important things for that week. And the last weekly meeting is about projecting the plan forward and making sure we're clear on what has to happen for the next month. That's the semi-monthly and weekly. Then we break it down to the daily, right? You think, okay, there's a lot of meetings. And look, it might be a lot of meetings, but the reality is that meetings promote communication. Communication helps things run smoothly. When meetings become a waste of time is when there's no fixed agenda and there's no purpose for the meeting. All of these meetings I'm talking about have a very clear purpose, and they should have a written agenda for each one. And if things come up that aren't on the agenda or aren't within the purpose of that meeting, they should be taken offline. Otherwise people get sidetracked and meetings drag on and you don't get done what you set out to do. And that's when the efficiency of meetings really dives. So back to our daily meetings. Our daily meetings are 5 or 10 minutes max, and it's what we call the daily huddle. You get the key people in the organisation or within a department, and they go through and they basically say what their win was from yesterday, what their number one priority is for today, and then are there any obstacles that are preventing them from getting it done. And you go around the circle. These should be standing meetings ideally, so they're nice and short and fluid, and just keeps everyone really focused on what's important in the big ticket items. Think about your business. If every single person in your business knew every day what their most important activity was to get done, that contributed to the plan, that contributed to the goals that you'd set out, how much focus and how much energy would that bring to your business? Combine that with semi-monthly meetings that have regular review of the numbers, the important numbers, so you know what needs to change, and you're not reacting, when it's too late, combined with the monthly, semi-monthly meeting that gets you focused on the next month. These meetings have a purpose and helps bring cohesiveness, direction, and momentum to your business. I highly advocate you give it a trial, and I wouldn't advocate that you try and do it all next month. Gradually you implement one at a time. Maybe start with a 90-day planning session, then start with a semi-monthly meeting, then go to the weeklies, then go to the daily huddles. Find what's going to work best for you, but gradually, if you worked on that for a year, in 12 months you would have such an efficient communication system within your business. Everyone would just be tuned in sync, and it would be a massive boost to the efficiency and results you're going to produce in your business. Look, have some fun with it. Now let's move on to the marketing return on investment.